We're going over System Pticha, Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, Bala Sulam, Chapter 1, The Thought of Creation and the 4 Phases of Direct Light. And we're going over Item 2, the Path Development. Cascading Light and Vessel.
Cascading light and vessel. Baal HaSalam. Number 2, as we have said, the will to receive is innately included in the thought of creation with all of its denominations. Along with the great abundance, he had planned to delight them and impart to them. And know that these are the ore, the light, and the kli, vessel, that we discern in the upper world. They necessarily come tied together and cascade together, degree by degree. And the extent to which the degrees descend from the light of his face and depart from him is the extent of the materialization of the will to receive contained in the abundance. We could also state the opposite. To the extent that the will to receive in the abundance materializes, it descends degree by degree to the lowest of all places, where the will to receive is fully materialized. This place is called the world of Asiya, action. The will to receive is considered man's body, and the abundance one receives is considered the measure of vitality in that body. Explanation. Number 2. We are born with a perception that is designed to first reach maturity, and then we can mature others. The perception is called our vessel. We attain within it the details and the essence, which is called the light. A more mature perception can discern more delicate and nuanced patterns in our behavior. The further our perception matures from our birth, we utilize more of our will to receive in the abundance accordingly. We can also state the opposite, that we advance by the materialization of our perception to align with the materialization of the reality we are perceiving. This place is called the world of action. The will to receive is considered the body to contain our vitality.
Any questions on the Bala Sulam?
Yeah, he talks about describing it in 2 different ways. I just didn't understand in what way. What were the 2 different ways? You know, because it's at the bottom part. It says we could also state the opposite. Well, what is the other side? What are the sides that he's talking about here?
We can either say we're going from the past. We can have 2 anchor points. We can either say we are moving further and further away from the past, or we can say we're coming closer and closer to the future.
Okay, so it's just basically a half empty, half full type situation.
Yes.
Okay.
Process. Explanation. Number 2, we are born with a perception that is designed to first reach maturity, and then we can mature others. The perception is called our vessel. We attain within it the details and the essence, which is called the light. So as we can see here, we basically go through 3 main stages. So we have the preparation, which is what we go through before the barrier. Then we have the implementation, which we go from the barrier until end of correction. And then we start to live, we actually use the implementation. So the idea is that in the preparation, we're basically learning some basic concepts. We're revealing our will to receive in its totality, in its completion. And then after the barrier, we start revealing the will to bestow. And then when they're correctly aligned and you could handle both of them within you, then you reach end of correction. And then you start to work on the expression or continue expression of knowing when are you meant to use the will to bestow within you and when are you meant to use the will to receive within you. And this is just called maturity because you're basically maturing your perception along the way. And then once it's matured, then you can actually use that maturity. A more mature perception can discern more delicate and nuanced patterns in our behavior. The further our perception matures from our birth, we utilize more of our will to receive and the abundance accordingly. So the idea is that, we learn it that we go from boundless light to this world instead of from this world to boundless light. So the idea is that reality cascades from boundless light to this world. And this is the world that we see in front of us. So the idea is that, and we talked about this in the previous session, where the algorithm goes from a state where it's all one, and when it cascades, and what we see in our reality is where we see separation. We see all the differences. This is a table. This is a chair. This is a person. This is the sky. This is the ground. We see all the differences, and we don't see the wholeness, the wholesome of the system. But the idea is it came from a root. And then we have our perception, which we're born with an immature perception, which is called boundless light. And that's why we love talking about potential, but we don't actually talk about actualizing anything. We like opportunities, we like choice, and that's a very immature perception. And the idea is to reach a mature perception where actually you know where you can actually focus on, and you're less interested in choice and much more interested in specifics. And then you can actually implement those specifics. So you go from a world of boundless to a world of a specific choice, of a line, of restriction. And you actually enjoy that restriction. You actually enjoy that you have focus on things, and that you won't be doing everything, but you're able to actually do something correctly. We could also state the opposite, that we advance by the materialization of our perception to align with the materialization of the reality we are perceiving. This place is called the world of action. The will to receive is considered the body to contain our vitality. So the idea is that in the previous slide, we were basically going from our beginning point was what we were referring to, like how far are we from our immature perception. But then we can also look at the end and look at our mature perception and compare ourselves to that. And the idea is to align to reality. So the problem is when we're born into reality, our senses sense reality, but our perception is not ready for that reality. It's like seeing something different, or it's perceiving something different. And the idea is to have alignment between the reality and what we're perceiving. And that's called equivalence of form, where the idea is that part of the reason why we get so frustrated throughout our lives is because we don't know what we're actually seeing. We don't know how to interpret it. We, for example, think that people have free choice, and we don't understand that they're all results of my desires, and all different concepts like this. When you are actually able to actualize them and implement them, then you can actually work in a world of where you understand that anything that happens is a result coming from your desires, and you can deal with it either externally and internally, or both.
Okay. Why did you highlight the two boxes there, the two slides? One of them has the highlighted world of action, right? And then the other one has got the immature perception birth box selected. What were you trying to show there?
So the idea is to show that the anchor is different. So in the first one, it was talking about the further our perception matures from our birth. So the anchor point is the birth. But here, we're advancing to a materialization to align our perception to reality. So the anchor point is reality, not our immature perception. We're looking at the future. We're not looking at where we've come from. And it's just to show that that's what Islam is trying to refer to, and in the explanation, it's trying to make it easier to understand that you could either look how far have you come, or you could say how far have you got to go to. So you can either say how far have I come from the past, or how much do I have to go to reach the future.
And the future being here is
And
alignment with reality, alignment
exactly.
with perception of reality.
Exactly.
Why does it look so simple in these slides you make? Like in all your explanations, it looks like it's very, very simple. Like it's just a thing here, and Gamartikun. And you know, you have volumes of TS, thousands of pages, the Bible, whatever. So what's your take on this one?
Think of it like this. When you grow throughout your life, right? So you're going from a baby to an adult. So you could say it's very simple. You go from a baby to a child to a teenager to an adult, right? And that wouldn't be a lie. That's true. Or you could actually go deeper in each one and just talk about what you're going to experience. Or you could go even deeper and say what the physiological changes that are going to happen to your body. So the idea is that you can go deep as you want, but it doesn't mean that if you give an overview, it's not true. So this is the overview. The overview is we go from an immature perception to a mature perception. There's phases that we talk about that, you go from 1.1 to 4.4 before you cross the barrier, and then you go from 1.1 to 4.4 to reach end of correction, right? And then you've got secrets and the eye is not seen afterwards. So the idea is that you've got the high-level overview, and then in each one you can go deeper in and see the details to it. So this is just trying to give an overview.
But in order for me to advance, do I need to, can I just rush through the overview, or do I have to get deep into the deepest of details of each thing? So
the idea is able to zoom in and zoom out. So it's good to have an overview, right? Because if you just get too many details, you'll be lost in them. So the idea is to have an overview, and then as we go on, we'll actually go more and more into the details, which is what Pticha will show. We'll say the Pticha will basically talk about how do we go from before the barrier all the way to end of correction. That's what it's going to be talking about. So we're going to go into more deeper scrutinies of how that works.
Okay, but this is okay because Pticha is a short book.
What, Daniel?
But that this is okay because Pticha is a short book. Like Tess is volumes, Zohar is volumes, Bible is thousands of pages, Pticha is other.
And that's why we're going over Pticha. So we went over Talmud Yisrael Part 1, which basically talked how to go from before the barrier to the barrier. And the reason we didn't continue doing more Talmud Yisrael parts is because we wanted to give more of an overview. We wanted to show all the phases to go from before the barrier all the way to end of correction. And this is why we're going over Pticha. To first of all show that it's actually talking about that, and it's not talking about something that happened in the past, but states we actually go through. And we'll start to be able to see the different logical parts throughout that perception maturation.
So we're not talking about physical birth here, we're talking about our entering spirituality.
No, we're talking about physical birth. So the idea is that when you're physically born, you're basically born into the state called boundless light, which is a little different how normally it's taught. Normally it's taught that we're in this world and we go back to boundless light. We teach it the other way around. We teach it that you actually go from boundless light to this world.
Right.
And the idea is that the 4 phases of direct light are basically the 4 phases that you go through before the barrier. And then the first restriction is the barrier. You've got the second restriction, which is the parasa. And then you've got end of correction. So the idea is that we're basically trying to take this body of knowledge that was always normally taught as knowledge, and we're making it into Torah, we're making it into discernments, into phases, what you actually go through, and what you reach at every point, and the discernments that you should collect more or less, and really make this more of an experience and less of just a knowledge understanding.
So when we're looking at mature perception, we're looking at building a larger vessel.
Yes.
At that point, okay.
And with both quantity and quality.
Right. So we've got some correction going on here, and we're actually making desires that make sense at this point, the more altruistic as opposed to egotistical.
So the idea is that you're basically building your egoism to the barrier, and then from the barrier until end of correction, you're building your altruism, and then you have both parts within you. At the end of correction, you have the egoism within you, and you have the altruism within you, and then you start to work with both of those parts, with the combination.
So what happens to this nefesh, this little piece of light, this little piece of soul that we have? How does that come into play at this mature perception? So
the idea is that the point in the heart, and we'll go over the phases in the fourth item, because it basically goes over 4 phases direct light. But to have an overview, the idea is you get your point in the heart at 1.3, which is basically after you've gone through food, sex, and family, which is 1.1, and then you reach money, honor, and knowledge, which is 1.2. Then you get your passive point in the heart, which is basically wanting the meaning of life, And that's why people go to religion and mysticism, which is 1.3. Then they start reaching Kabbalah, which is 1.4. Then you've got connection, which is 2.1, mutual guarantee, which is 2.2, and etc. All the way up to 4.4, which is when you cross the barrier.
So 1.3 would be faith below reason.
Yes.
Okay. And then 1.4 would be, we're going to jump in that 1 point of faith above reason?
So faith above reason would start in mutual guarantee, which is 2.2.
Oh, okay.
Like it says that love of friends is meant to be within reason, not above reason. But the mutual guarantee, that's when you start touching the above reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the correct above reason, right?
No, it is. No. The above reason starts when you actually implement 2.2. So what you'll find is that many people they reach the 2.2 stage of mutual guarantee, but they don't actually implement it. And that's what stops them from advancing. They love talking about mutual guarantee. They don't actually practice it. If you don't practice it, you can't move on to the next phase.
I have a question about alignment, because, we've talked about aligning our conscious to the subconscious. And here we're aligning our perception to the materialization of the reality. Is this pretty much the same thing, because the reality is the manifestation of our subconscious?
Yes. Yes.
And that,
yes.
by maturing, we have to have clean concepts of responsibility and accountability and all this. This helps to the align, right?
Exactly.
Okay. I'm good.
I have a question. Zaka, you said a few minutes ago that usually the way it's being taught is that you want to go back to the boundless light, and here we're teaching it the other way around. And there's something a little confusing about it. It feels like there's two ways of teaching, and I've given it some thought in the past, and I want to share. Tell me if it makes sense that we are born into a boundless light with regard to the physical senses, and something happens to our physical senses, and they develop by getting more and more details and so forth. The end result of this process is the reality as we see it around us. We're not dealing with this part of how the actual reality cascades, but we are looking at the perception of the reality. We are accepting the reality that is being received via our senses as a given, and we're asking ourselves, what leverage or what power do we have by controlling our perception with regard to this reality as we see it? And here a footnote would be that once we realize the perception, we understand that the reality can be changed. But the beginning point of dealing with the material is that the reality exists, and we are not asking questions about the development of our senses and everything, but we're only dealing with the development of our perception of the given reality.
That is true.
Okay.
Yes. So it is that we're not dealing with a body of knowledge. We're not trying to learn more information. We're trying to improve our lives. At the end of the day, people come to Kabbalah because they see things that are wrong in their reality. And Kabbalah comes and says, well, nothing's wrong in reality. You just are not perceiving it correctly. And if you perceive it correctly, you'll actually see how everything is perfect. And that's the whole process that we go through. It's like we come in, we're like, this is wrong. It's like, well, it's not wrong. You just don't know how it works. Let me teach you how it works. Let me teach you how you think. Let me teach you how other people think. And then you'll see how the world is working towards perfection. And Bala Salam gives the example of a fruit where it's going through ripening phases. And the idea is that if you look at it and it's unripe or premature, the idea is that you shouldn't judge it by its premature state, because you've got to understand that it's going to reach a point where it's going to be a delicious fruit. And it's the same thing with reality. We look at it and we're like, this looks bad. It's like, well, it's not. You're looking at it as if it's bad in itself. It's being in a process. It's like you're installing something. It's like when you're installing new software on your phone, and your phone, you can't use it while you're installing. And then someone could say, oh, so your phone is useless. It's like, yeah, it looks like it's useless now, but I'll be able to use it later. So the same process we go through with our perception, where throughout the growth from the barrier until intercorrection, there are certain abilities, for example, expression, that we gain and then we lose and then we gain again. So the idea is that when you're aware of the process, it's much easier to handle it.
That's that fruit analogy. I love that. It's peace in the world. That right before it says that, and I think this is the part that we need to correct. It says that you have to accept, and you can't really mention this to anyone unless they're really studying this. You have to accept the fact the Creator gives us both sides of the coin. He gives us the good and he gives us the bad. And we have to look at that as part of our state, how we're going to clean our concepts, move forward, correct our desires, and attain and reach high levels of attainment. It's that point that we have to get to where we say, okay, so this isn't a good situation, but I accept what it is, and use that as opposed to taking on the path of pain and reward, so to speak, anything less than that. And that, I think, is what we're getting at here, because the whole idea of the fruit is that we're part of the process of creation, because if we weren't, the fruit would appear on the tree fully ripened, but it doesn't. It gives us its phases so that we can understand what it is when it's finally reached that final state, right? It's like us.
Exactly. It's like, someone say, I see bad things and I thought the Creator does good. It's like, yeah, the Creator does good, but what is the definition of good? And that an immature perception of good is not the same as a mature perception of good. So the word is the same, the definition changes. It's like an immature perception of love, which we've talked in the past. An immature perception of love is when I give to others. And a mature perception of love is actually when you control somebody else but give them the illusion of free will. Just like the Creator loves us, and he totally controls us 100%, but gives us that illusion of free will. And we do the same when we love our children. We totally control their environment, but we give them the sensation, give them the feeling that they can actually do whatever they want, that they have freedom of choice, that they could, do whatever they want, but actually they're in a totally controlled environment.
Right. We walk around in this state that we're making these decisions. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right?
Right. So the idea is that as we evolve, as we advance and mature our perception, we basically have to start cleaning these concepts and have a much more mature understanding of even basic concepts such as love, hate, and so forth.
I want to challenge the example of the apple, because there's something, I think, risky there. Because if you look at an apple and you see in the apple the future potential that's in it, and you do not judge it by its current state, that's fine. You should accept its current state as a perfect state that is withholding within it its future state yet to be revealed. Taking that and shifting it to our perception of reality in general is risky, because one may think that the parallel line towards reality goes as follows. I'm looking at reality and I don't like a lot of things. Just as I don't like, a part of me does not like the apple when it's not ripe yet. So what I need to do is wait for reality to become, to become ripe. Yeah, to become ripe, and then it'll be great. I need to look at reality and wait for something outside of me, such as the apple, to change. And I think the risk is that you find yourself waiting for something to happen outside of you. So, having said that, the way I think about it is as follows. We look at the apple, and the apple is totally ripe, but it's not ripe in our perception. We need to change our perception so that we will see the apple in its ripeness. So what do you say about this?
So there's two parts. The one part is, you could say the apple is fine about the perception, that we have to go through the maturation of our perception, go from immature to mature. The other part is when we look at reality, there's two parts to it. One, when I'm looking at other people, they are immature. So they still have to go through that growth. It's not like they're perfect as in they're going to stay immature forever. They are also going to change over time. But the idea is it's perfect in the planning, you could say. So the plan is perfect. The way you see the process, it looks like it's bad, but it's not bad. It's just part of the process. So you could say that there's like two apples here. Just like you see here, there's reality, which is changing over time. And then there's the perception of the person, which changes over time. And the idea is for people to reach that alignment, but the idea is that the world is still, it's not like, when we say the world is perfect, it's not like we're going to say that, oh yeah, all the wars, they're going to stay forever. No, there is going to be change in the future. But the idea is that the wars that are now in this moment is perfect. But the next moment will be different. And this is the idea of going from perfection to perfection and not going from flaw to flaw.
So I can relate to the advice given in the example of the apple with respect to people in my reality. That I can relate to, which in a nutshell says they are not all yet developed, they are not all yet ripe. Look how beautiful this is, because they are on the process of being just as ripe as they need to be. But reality does not only contain people. Well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
Kabbalah did people.
Yeah.
The problem that people have in life is people, not any other, not still vegetative element.
Yeah.
That's why we call it nature. Right? We call the still vegetative and animate nature. And the reason why we don't call humans nature is because we think them as something separate, even though they're part of the same system.
The fruit is either going to be ripe or not. It's not. If the fruit is either going to be ripe or it isn't going to be ripe, and it's our perception. Because if two people come up to me and have a ripe piece of fruit in their hand, both pieces of fruit are equally ripe, and they both offer me this fruit, my perception depends on who I take it from, how I feel about that person, that environment at that particular time. It really has nothing to do with the ripeness. So we could both eat that fruit, and maybe you'll get a sore in your mouth because you have an allergy to it, but it still doesn't lessen the state of that fruit at that time.
So yes, reality we do share, right? So the idea is in our perceptions we share states, but we each have a unique experience. But that's also like in reality where we might be in the same location, but we still have a different experience. So the idea is that just like there's a common part in spirituality, there's also a common part in reality. But the idea is that if you're looking at an unripe fruit, right, it's in the middle of its growth. So let's say a child who doesn't know, let's say, the process of how the fruit is growing might say, "Daddy, throw away that apple. It doesn't, it's not going to work." And he's like, "Wait, son, it's going through maturation. It's growing." So that's when people look at the world today, they look at it and they judge it in its current form, and they say, "Look, it's terrible. The world is going to end. Might as well pack our bags and just prepare for it." And then the idea is someone with a more mature perception, which is basically a Kabbalist, comes and says, "Not exactly. The world is actually going to go to a great place, and we can actually have a conscious involvement with that process." And that's what Kabbalah is all about.
So are we talking about two different, I'm getting a sense that we're talking about, we're using the word reality, but we mean that there's two realities at a point in time. The reality of what it is, in other words, the fruit is ripe, versus, I think in the reading, it described perception as it being the vessel. And I'm imagining boundless light hitting something, depending on the perception, depending on the cleanliness, how clean this vessel is. Then, with that respect, the light then shows a certain reality. Now, this is a different reality. This is the reality that, depending on the perception, needs either more cleaning, or and so forth, versus the true reality of the fruit being already ripe. My only question here would be alignment, because right here all that was discussed in this reading was aligning to it. I'm imagining basically the subconscious then aligning with the potential with the actual, but there's no expression yet that is being discussed here. Fine, I understand it now. I understand that I was causing all of this, and I've cleaned this thing, but there isn't yet here a notion of expressing, of expression.
Yeah, it's not talking about expression here. We're just talking about alignment here.
Okay.
One last sentence is that
Yes, Jesse.
That I have a feeling that there's another issue here. One is, looking at people similarly as Baal Sulam suggests to look at an apple. That's one thing. The other thing is my perception of how I perceive them. Meaning, like, if I do not see them, if I am aware that I do not see them as positively as described in Baal Sulam's Apple description, Apple issue, then this is actually a reflection that my perception towards them is incorrect. And it's an opportunity for me to correct my perception so that when I do look at them, I will see them as the apple.
The idea is to understand that we've got reality. So, for example, if you've got a mature person, an immature person looking at a plate of food, they'll both see the same plate of food, right? I can say this joke where if something in reality, let's say you miss the bus, it's like, well, if you were corrected, it's got nothing to do with it. You'll miss the bus whether you've got a mature perception or immature perception, because the bus will be at a certain time. The idea is, though, the way you relate to that situation, that's what we're dealing with perception. So you've got the reality where two people can look at the same thing and see the same result. And then you've got the perception where it's subjective to each person and depending on their state that they're in their perception.
So it's pretty much like cognitive psychology, just like to the 100%.
You could say like something like that, but with structure and with a goal, and with states and classes and all different ways that you can actually measure yourself along the way.
But the only that counts is Gamar Tikkun. Like anything before that, it's not good. Like you would get pissed off at the things.
Well, think of it like this. Let's say you have a car. noch eins so. אבל בשתי לי. אני אמשיך את זה אחר כך. אני אסגור אחר כך. Just a second. So if you have a car, end of correction is when your car is ready to drive. Right? And you can actually drive your car only after end of correction. So any state before that, what's the point? It's like, my car is 50% ready for driving. That's very nice. But until you can actually drive it, what's the point? So end of correction is when you can actually drive yourself. And then that's why we actually only start actually living after end of correction. That's why it's called end of correction, not end of expression. We actually seriously start our expression after end of correction. And we have a taste of it throughout the phases, mostly in greatness, which is 2.2 after the barrier. But the idea is that we basically start our lives after end of correction.
But it's funny, like it's the creator playing with us all the time, because okay, at end of correction you get the life you want, but then you reach the next state and then you don't care.
What do you mean?
Like all of this work is to have control over our lives and
Yes.
to be able to have everything we desire. Okay, so but when we reach the end of correction, we get that. But then when we reach the eyes have seen not, like all of this work we did for, like, it doesn't matter anymore because we don't care what we get.
That's not entirely true. So the idea is that there's two parts. One is that the desires you have before the barrier, most of them are, you could say, desires and potential and no actuality, and people don't actually think too much about what they want. They say, I want this, and they don't actually think too much. It's like, I want a yacht. It's like, you need money for a yacht, and you need a job to get that money, and they're like, oh, that's too much thinking. I just want to think of the yacht. So most people have basic desires they never actually want to allow them to reach fruition. Some are totally impossible, some are just unnecessary, some are just stupid. And so the first part is to clean your desires and understand what you can actually achieve and what you won't be achieving. Like if someone's goal is to, start, getting angel wings and flying, probably not going to happen. Maybe you should be focusing on something much more you can actually actualize in this world and stop having all these dreams of, the next world I will, I'll become a body of light and I'll have wings and we'll be able to fly. It's like, yeah, that's not your problem. Your problem is that you can't even handle this world. So first align yourself to this world and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's got to be doable. That's our word, doable.
Yes. And that's the idea that, before the barrier, we've got this spacey where we're in this boundless light. Like, I could do anything. It's like, but you don't do everything. It's like, if I could do anything, it's like someone walking into a supermarket and saying, I could buy anything. But you don't, every time you go in the supermarket, buy everything or anything. You normally buy a very specific set of groceries, right? You buy some milk, some bread, some vegetables, some fruits, and that's more or less it. Maybe some cereal. Like, you can do some basic stuff. You're not going to be buying everything. So the whole idea is to go from that potential boundless light and actualize it, and this is called this world.
And the expression happens when we have a high degree of alignment.
Exactly, we're aligned to our own desires. We know what we want. So the problem is, we think we want things, and we just don't have much detail to them. And it's like we don't even want detail because we just want to. It's like we want the aspiration without actually actualizing it.
And it's after the barrier we begin this cleaning of desires too, besides concepts, right?
Exactly.
Clean concepts and desires.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why people don't like the phases that we talk about in system concepts is because it suddenly takes it from that possibility and opportunity and actually closes it down to something you can actually do. But then it takes them out of their dreams and aspirations of, I could do anything and I could become anything. It's like, no, you're going to become something specific. And you're going to be able to actually, bring your potential into fruition. It's like, no, but then you're limiting me. It's like, focus and limitation are not bad if you know what you want and how you can actually get there.
Yeah, it's got to be tangible.
Exactly.
One question. In Gamartikun, if I get a desire to become an angel with wings, I'll correct it right away?
You won't get that, you won't have that desire.
And also, would you describe the eyes have seen not as a state of non-duality,
What do you mean?
like pain and pleasure is just the same. Like there's
You see, that's the idea. You still feel pain and pleasure, but the idea is you have a mature perception how to handle that pain and pleasure. If someone punches me in the face, it's going to hurt. You want it to hurt. You know what we call people that can't feel pain? We call them sick people. Sick people can't feel pain. Healthy people feel pain. Pain is good. Pain is a sign of something's wrong. You want to know that sign of pain. But the idea is you want to only invite pain that is necessary and not pain which is unnecessary.
But the other time you said you didn't care of going to hell, of burning in hell. So you're above pain. Like that state is above pain and pleasure.
You don't worry. You don't mind going to hell because you know that hell doesn't exist. So it's not. It doesn't. The issue with hell is that we're like so scared of it because let's say we envision we'll have a body there and it'll be burning, and we don't understand even that our concepts of hell and heaven are very passive concepts. We're basically in a situation where somebody else controls what happens there in both heaven and hell. So it doesn't make sense, and why do I need to go to a different reality to have pain? I can have pain in this world as well. Someone can murder me or cause me immense pain. What, burning in hell, suddenly that's like more painful? Again, it comes to these concepts. We have very immature concepts. We have to clean them and understand that hell and heaven aren't, as we envision, which are, physical passive experiences.
Well, we really create that within our state here. I mean, isn't that true? I mean, when we get into these upper states and these upper worlds, we're not bound by this world, by this Malchut, so we don't have the same experience. So if we don't correct our desires before we leave this world, then we're destined to come back.
Kabbalah doesn't deal with what happens after you die for two reasons. Right. One, you should be focusing on how you can make this life the best you can and stop always focusing on your next iteration. And the second thing is, well, you can't prove anything. So what's the point? It's like it's like if you have a dream, right? And you have a dream and it's so intense, you wake up, right? So it doesn't really matter whether you're dying or you're reincarnating, whatever it is, you're just changing perceptions. It could be that you suddenly, it could be, that when you die, you wake up and you find out that your previous reincarnation was a dream. It doesn't really matter. The Kabbalah doesn't deal with that. Kabbalah deals with how can you align yourself to the world the Creator has made now and stop focusing on, well, this world, it's a lost cause. Let me focus on the next iteration.
Right. We waste this world, but we do have the actual ability to take on other souls, higher souls, that will come into us, into our reality, so to speak, that will come into
perception. It states a perception. A soul is basically a desire to advance, and the idea is that when we advance, we go through states, and they're fixed states, and each time you reach a state, you basically are called by that state. Just like at 4.4.3, before intercorrection, you reach Shimon from the market. So anyone who reaches that 4.4.3 before intercorrection feels the state of Shimon from the market. I'll move on. Spiritual and physical.
Spiritual and physical. Baal HaSalam. It is similar in other creatures in this world. Thus, the only difference between the upper worlds and this world is that as long as the will to receive included in his abundance has not fully materialized, it is regarded as being in the spiritual worlds, above this world. And once the will to receive has fully materialized, it is regarded as being in this world. Explanation. The only difference between the upper worlds and this world is that as long as our perception has not reached maturity, it is regarded as being still in spiritual potential. And once our perception has fully materialized, it is regarded as being in this world, called end of correction.
Any questions on the Bala Salam part?
You read it again, please.
Read it again, Robin.
Baha Salam. It is similar in other creatures in this world. Thus, the only difference between the upper worlds and this world is that as long as the will to receive included in his abundance has not fully materialized, it is regarded as being in the spiritual worlds above this world. And once the will to receive has fully materialized, it is regarded as being in this world.
Why? What catches my eye is like the will to receive included in his abundance. Why is it included in his abundance? What's the meaning of it being included?
So the idea is phase one, right? The abundance, which is basically the light, creates the vessel. And the vessel is a nod to the light. So as you can see, for example, in phase one, people, which is basically in humanity, they're in constant running after their desires, and there's no thought process, and their only thought process has how to fill their desires, and they don't have the ability to stand on the side and say, wait a second, why am I running after this like a headless chicken? And that's what it means that the will to receive is included in his abundance.
When does this process start?
When we're born, when we're physically born. 1.1 is which is food, sex, and family, and 1.2, which is money, honor, and knowledge.
No, sorry. Like my question is, when does the reflection about our own thought process start?
So the passive thought process starts at 1.3 with our passive point in the heart, and the active part starts in 2.3 in obstinate desires.
So we're really, this relationship we're having with the Creator, this is what it seems to me he's saying here, is that when we receive, as long as our will to receive is included in his abundance, has not fully materialized, regarded as being in the spiritual worlds. Okay, so that says to me that we're still in this relationship where we're trying to bestow to the Creator, even though we rise up to the next rung of the ladder. This never stops. This whole process, it continues again. We just have a higher state at that point. When we're in this world and it's fully materialized and it's completely ego, because we're saying, oh, I got this from the Creator, I deserve it, it's all about fulfilling my desires here. And then it becomes what we consider Sitra Akra.
Well, actually, when the way we learn it is we learn it from the perception. So from the perception perspective, when you reach this world, this is when you have your full egoism and full altruism within you. So we don't start from this world and reach boundless light. We start from boundless light. We start from a world of potential, and we reach this world, which is a world of actualization. But we have both forces within us.
Yes, but this altruism, I mean, we really can't. It's very difficult, it's very difficult in this world.
So don't think
of action.
Don't look at reality. Don't look at reality. Don't read it as reality. When you're hearing the word "this world," you're thinking immediately of reality. You're thinking of what you see in your senses. You're thinking of the people.
I'm thinking of the state. No, I'm not thinking. I'm thinking of the state. Really, I mean
perception.
Yeah, perception. Right. What I'm saying is that we really cannot create a true altruistic act without making a calculation for ourselves.
So the idea is that altruism, when you advance, you find out that unlike what normally people think that egoism is when I'm thinking of myself when I'm doing a physical act, and then altruism is when I'm not thinking about myself when I'm doing a physical act. But that is, again, immature perception of altruism and egoism, because that is what phase 2 does, where in the spiritual society, when they say the Creator's altruism, and we want to be like him. But the problem is we only have before the barrier the quality of reception. We don't have the quality of bestowal. So what we basically try to do is try to bestow in the quality of reception, which means that we try to altruistically do actions with our will to receive. The will to receive is only designed to do one thing, and that's to receive in order to receive to itself and have a self-benefit. And then after the barrier, that's when we get the ability of altruism to look it's still goal-oriented. So people have this this misconception that altruism is that you have no goal and that it's without any sort of a goal in mind. It's not true. Altruism has a goal. There's the goal of creation. That is the true. Every altruistic act should be done with the goal of creation in mind. And if it's not, then it's actually an egoistic act. So the idea is that when you reach that end of correction, you basically have both perceptions, both perspectives in you. You have the perspective of you as a physical person in this world that has its egoistic needs. And then you've got the altruistic part in you, which is going to help move reality towards high perceptions, empower people, make them independent on each other. And that's an altruistic act, since the idea is that your goal is not for your benefit of your body, but rather for the benefit of the entire system, because you feel that you are the entire system.
Right, and I agree, but I wasn't looking at it as egotistical from that perspective. I was looking at it as bestowal, reception and bestowal, because even though we bestow, if we could try to connect to love thy neighbor as thyself, say, well, how do I do that? How do I love myself? First, we have to define that and identify what that is, and then I can take it from there and use that to love my neighbor. I'm nice to myself. I go get a massage. I work out at the gym, and then I give my neighbor a massage and give him let him use my pass to the gym. No, it's deeper than that, and we can't ever make that even the smallest state of act of bestowal. We're making a calculation. In the altruistic state, we're asking to give that back to the Creator, and we don't even know what the Creator looks like or what the Creator is. So we have.
Well, the idea of the barrier, you become the Creator. You actually say, "I am the Creator." So the Creator it's not something outside of you, and you're having some kind of relationship with it. Rather, you sense the quality of bestowal within you, and you call that the Creator. So you basically have two qualities within you. You have the quality of reception, and you have the quality of bestowal. And the quality of bestowal, you call the Creator within you. So the idea is you're not actually relating anymore to the Creator outside of you. You already in phase 3, you start relating to the Creator within inside of you and not outside. So you're not bestowing to the Creator, you're bestowing within inside yourself. So you're dealing with these two qualities within inside yourself. You're dealing with one quality of the Creator within me, and you've got another quality, which is the person within me. And then you start having a conversation between those two qualities within you. So you're not having conversation between you and the Creator outside of you. You're having a conversation between the Creator within you and yourself.
Rap also says that like before the max sum, it's only with the group, the friends, and after the max sum that you work correcting the world. So it's like, how does this fit in?
So the idea is that before the barrier, you're basically only working with your egoism, and after the barrier, you're working with your altruism.
With respect to the explanation, it says on the third line, maturity has not yet reached maturity. It is regarded as being still in spiritual potential. And when I think about it, and I'm thinking about the reality in which we live, I feel like I would say instead of spiritual potential, I would say false reality perception.
Well, it's a potential. The idea is that it's something that you're going to, you could say your actualization is in potential, right? So it's spiritual as in it's something that could happen, and then end of correction is when it does happen. So the idea there's potential and actual. Explanation. The only difference between the upper worlds and this world is that as long as our perception has not reached maturity, it is regarded as being still in spiritual potential. Once our perception is fully materialized, it is regarded as being in this world called end of correction. So the idea is that when we're in boundless light and we're going through the phase, so basically we're going from 1.1 to 4.4 before the barrier. Then we cross the barrier and we enter Adam Kadmon, which is primordial man. We go from 1.1 to 1.4. Then we go into Olam Nekudim, the world of deficiencies, from 2.1 to 2.4. Then Olam Atzilut, the world of emanation, from 3.1 to 3.4. Then Olam Tikkun, the world of correction, from 4.1 to 4.4. We reach edge of correction. Now our desires have actualized, our perception has matured. Now we start living in this world, in Olam Hazeh. Now we actually start living the world we're in.
What does it mean that this world doesn't exist, that this world is an illusion?
This world is an illusion. Is the idea is that we're never actually dealing with this world existing as something outside of me. The world is a result of my state, the combination of my conscious and subconscious state. So the idea is that the people I see outside of me aren't people existing as of themselves, but rather are a picture that's drawn to me by the combination of my conscious and subconscious. So the idea is that in my subconscious, it's basically separated into, there's the me within reality, and then there's others within me in reality. So even when I'm having a conversation with you now, I'm actually having a conversation with myself, having a conversation with one part within me, which is Zachary Hamilton, having a conversation with another part within me, which is Daniel Romero. So I'm not talking to somebody outside of me. It looks like I'm talking to somebody outside of me, but I'm actually talking to someone inside of me. Balasalam talks about this in the preface to the Wisdom of the Zohar.
Yeah, I think that's like the headiest concept of all. You know what I mean? That we've attracted everything, that we ourselves subconsciously manifest our reality.
And those are called the secrets. The secrets are, and Balasalam talks about this in what's it called? Like double concealment, one reveal, concealing two, revealing one. I can't remember the name of the article. Does anyone know that?
Right.
Introduction to Talmud.
No. The
Tensifra.
No. The revealing one, concealing two.
Right. Reveal one, conceal two.
Yeah, but I don't
Or
know.
hide.
Disclosing a portion?
Yeah, disclosing a portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, disclosing a portion. So there he talks about the secrets, and the secrets is basically that it's also talked about more in the quality of the wisdom of hidden in general. And he talks there about the whole idea of mysticism and how it works. That basically, when you understand that somebody is not outside of you, but actually inside of you, and this is the whole idea of expression, you can actually manipulate yourself internally and then make changes externally. So the idea is you don't have to actually interact with people externally in certain situations. You can actually do internal changes instead and not have to actually do that. So you're still interacting with them, but the idea is you can actually change thoughts and emotions of the other person by changing yourself and not having to actually interact with them directly.
Right. And you see, I'm interacting with like gangster thugs and hookers, amongst other things, nuns, so it's really bizarre for me right now because of the broad spectrum I'm manifesting out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all me doing it,
I would say the closest thing that people could actually visualize how this looks. There's this new game coming. There is this new game coming out in a few months called No Man's Sky, and the idea is that the whole game is basically calculated by math functions, by algorithms, and that the idea is that even the creators of the game don't know when they go to a planet in the game what's going to be on that planet, because the idea is they just set up rules and they run them, and then the idea is that when the player is actually moving around, he's making modifications in the algorithm of parameters, and it draws the world in front of him as he's moving around.
I think you showed us some clips from that, right?
Exactly. And that's the closest I would say.
That's incredible. We were talking about the virtual reality and stuff then, too. Yeah, the next few years are going to be stupendous.
And I would say that's the closest now if someone wants to see, like, how could it be that the whole world is drawn in front of me and doesn't actually exist in itself? So in the game, if there's no perceiver, there is no game. So the game only exists with a perceiver, because otherwise it's just an algorithm. And when you put in
like
parameters,
physics, right?
Exactly, that if there's no observer, there is no world.
Right. This is just so far out, man.
But
I thought there was that movie too, with Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt, where he wanted to marry a girl, but it showed how everything was precisely controlled. Remember that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a big Hollywood thing.
But when the player plays, he does not make changes to the algorithm. He makes changes only to the parameters that the algorithm uses, right?
Yes, only to the parameters. So the idea is, for example, when he goes to one planet and sees, let's say, animals in their infancy, and then goes away and comes back later and sees them grown up, the idea is that they didn't actually grow up while he wasn't there. The idea is when he goes back, the parameters of the time say, oh, let me draw him a more mature set of animals in front of him. So the idea is that it's like, you see your children, and you see them in some state, and then you go away, then you come back, and you think, oh, my children did things while I was gone. And it seems like that, but the idea is that reality is just drawn in front of you, always in that finalized state. But it's not, if you're not there, nothing's actually happening when you're not there.
No, but that's hard to accept. I'm saying, I meet people every day and they're off going about doing their things. That's how history's getting made. I'm reading about them in the papers, seeing them on the TV.
It's like I say, who's first, Superman or his parents?
Well, his parents.
No, Superman.
No, they didn't give birth to him. Oh, Superman's parents on Jor-El planet, whatever it is.
Yeah, but who existed first, Superman or his parents?
His parents.
No, Superman. The idea was that they wanted to make a movie about Superman, and then they give him a backstory of his parents.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying in real life, mommy and daddy have to do their thing.
So it is also in real life, you're born into your perception, and the idea is you've got a backstory that you have parents. But you can't actually prove that they were before you, because that's the reality that's drawn to you.
Yeah. No, this is totally what we call mind fuck.
There was in season 4, in episode 8 of the Next Generation of Star Trek, there's an episode where the idea is it draws to the person. He thinks that he's already got a son. He's like, I don't remember having a son. It's like, yeah, you already have a son, and you're already married and stuff, and you don't actually know unless what you're perceiving. So from his perspective, he didn't have any recollection that he was actually married and had a child, and he was having to start dealing with a child that he never knew that he actually had, because he woke up and they told him that he was asleep for 12 years. So the idea is that in the end, of course, he finds out that that it's not true. But the idea is that you basically have to go at the end by your perceptions. You're born into your perception, and it looks to you like your parents came before you, but it's all in your perception.
So this takes away the linearity of time. So first, what happened was the end, and then after the end happened, it was that the whole movie was created.
Exactly, and that's why we say that we always go by the goal of creation. We go by the end, not the beginning.
Okay, and about what Bala Sulam says in the introduction to the book of Zohar, that there is 3 stages. Stage 1 is Ein Sof, stage 2 is everything that happens in reality in time, and stage 3 is also Ein Sof. Then this stage 3 is, we don't know it yet.
So we explain stage 3 as not going from this world to Ein Sof. Rather, we interpret it as we go from Ein Sof to this world. So even though the Kabbalists wrote it as going from boundless light, basically, that the reality goes from boundless light to this world and then we go back up, we don't actually interpret it that way. We actually interpret it here in system concepts, that we go from boundless light to this world. And we base it on the essence of the wisdom of Kabbalah, where he talks about the 2 drops of the difference between going down and going up, that the way you go back up is precisely by the same steps that you came down. So in relation to boundless light of reality, it looks like we go back up to there. But the phases we actually go through are from boundless light all the way to this world.
It always felt to me like we were having two sets of going downwards. One is the cascading of reality, and the other one is the cascading of our perception of reality. And they're identical.
Exactly. And that's why you can read all the Kabbalah material as either talking about reality, which is basically, normally talked about the past, or you can look at it as phases you go through your perception, which is basically the future. If you look at it as it happening in the past, it's basically called the wisdom of Kabbalah. And if you look at it as your future, then it becomes the Torah of Kabbalah. Because it becomes an actual path you go through, instead of just learning about what happened.
Okay, the Torah can be the spice of life or the spice of death. It is the spice of life when we take it as a Torah, as a discernment, and a spice of death when we take it as wisdom.
When you're using the environment, right, using the discernments, if you're cleaning them correctly, using the environment, then it becomes the potion of life, aka it gives you the sensation that you're alive, that you're actually advancing. And otherwise, it can give you the false sensation that you're advancing when you're not, or it can give you the feeling that of pain that you're not, because you're not cleaning your perception, but because you think you're learning the wisdom, you think you should be better off. But if you don't learn it in the correct way and don't internalize it in the correct way, then it's going to cause you like more pain than pleasure. All right, I think we'll stop here and do the after party.